I'm not sorry about nothing. You know, it should never happen, but I ain't sorry. You start making me feel like I got something to like I owe something to somebody else.
If he hits that East Coast, I don't give a what if they gonna try to get at him.
Blockstar, one of the killers of Pop Smoke, just stepped into dangerous territory. After skating free because of his age, he's out here almost bragging about it, dropping disrespectful lines about the rapper that he helped kill.
So do you regret going to the Airbnb that night?
I don't regret nothing.
That might be the one mistake that changes everything, because word on the street is retaliation might already be in motion, and LA might not be the safe haven Blockstar thinks it is.
I ain't sorry. Like, die every day.
Imagine this. You get caught up in a crime so serious that it shakes the entire hip-hop world. A robbery goes wrong, a rising superstar is killed, and your name gets tied to the tragedy. But because of your age, the legal system cuts you a break. Instead of serving hard time, you get released back into the world. Most people in that position would keep a low profile, stay out of the spotlight, avoid drawing attention, and try to rebuild their life quietly. But not Blockstar. Instead of laying low, he went straight to No Jumper, one of the biggest platforms in hip-hop culture, and basically told the world, yeah, I was involved in Pop Smoke's murder. And no, I don't really care.
Don't regret nothing, but I wish I never had either.
Now, let's be real, this isn't just reckless, it's downright dangerous. The streets don't forget, and there are a lot of people, especially in New York, who still feel some type of way about Pop Smoke's death. The idea that one of his killers is out here talking reckless instead of showing any kind of remorse is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. During the interview, Blockstar made one of the most tone-deaf statements imaginable. When asked if he felt any remorse for what happened, he shrugged it off and said, I ain't sorry, I just feel bad.
I'm not sorry about nothing. You know, it should never happen, but I ain't sorry.
Think about that for a second. There's a huge difference between being sorry and just feeling bad. Saying, I feel bad is like saying, yeah, it sucks, but oh well. That's not an apology. That's not taking accountability. That's not even an attempt to make things right. It's just a half-hearted acknowledgement that something unfortunate happened. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he doubled down with something even worse.
I ain't sorry. Like, die every day.
That one line sent the internet into an uproar, because it wasn't just disrespectful, it was straight up dismissive. Pop Smoke wasn't just some random guy who got caught up in the streets. He was an artist, a young man with a bright future, someone who was on the verge of superstardom. He was putting on for Brooklyn, bringing back a sound that was changing the game.
At the gas station?
Yeah. Nah, that's
You think
cap.
that's him?
Nah, that's cap.
It looks so much like him. That
So to hear one of his killers brush off his death like it was just another statistic, that hit a nerve. After the interview dropped, it didn't take long for people to start reacting. On the East Coast, a lot of people in the NYC Crips community started talking about whether or not they should do something about it. There have been conversations about whether Pop Smoke's people should take a trip to LA to handle business. Now, here's where things get even crazier. Blockstar really thought he was about to get paid for his No Jumper interview, but things didn't go as planned. After running his mouth about Pop Smoke's murder, instead of walking away with a bag, he ended up with nothing. So what did he do? He tried to extort Adam, the guy who runs No Jumper. Yep. Instead of being grateful for the exposure, even if it was negative, Blockstar turned around and demanded money for his appearance. He even went online calling out Adam for allegedly not paying him.
Where's my bag? Dead homie, stop posting me and not giving me no money on AC.
But here's the thing, Adam is a businessman, and he's been in the game long enough to know when someone's desperate. And from the looks of it, he finessed Blockstar into doing the interview for free. You see, Blockstar willingly went on one of the biggest hip-hop platforms, exposed himself even more, talked reckless about Pop Smoke's death, and got absolutely nothing in return. No money, no new opportunities, no protection, just more heat and more enemies. And that's where he really messed up. Blockstar's whole game plan seems to be clout chasing. He came out of jail and immediately jumped on social media, bragging about how he's free while Pop Smoke is gone. But what he didn't realize is that not all clout is good clout. When you do an interview like that, especially after being involved in something as serious as Pop Smoke's murder, you're painting a target on your back. you're making yourself the topic of conversation for all the wrong reasons. And the worst part, he did all that talking, and now he's got nothing to show for it. No money, no industry backing, no respect, just more problems. While Blockstar is out here worried about a check, Pop Smoke's people are worried about something else: revenge. Ever since this interview dropped, the conversation has shifted from "damn, one of Pop's killers is free" to "so when is something gonna happen?" There are rumors that some people from NYC are talking about making a trip to LA. And this isn't just internet talk. Real street dudes are discussing it. See, Blockstar might think he's untouchable, but history shows that when it comes to revenge in the streets, it's never a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the way he's moving, he's making it easy for people to find him. No Jumper gave him the platform, but instead of playing it smart, he let his ego take over. Now he's out here with no money, no protection, and a lot of people watching his every move. And that's a recipe for disaster. NYC Crips, the same people Pop Smoke was tied to, are not taking this lightly. They're already talking about what needs to be done. And when it comes to street justice, it's usually not a matter of if, it's when. Boozy, who always keeps it real, even compared Blockstar's situation to Orlando Anderson, the guy linked to Tupac's murder. Back in the day, after Pac got shot, a lot of people expected Orlando to get dealt with immediately. But instead, LA gangs actually protected him. They saw him as a soldier who took out an enemy, not as a problem. And Boozy thinks Blockstar might get the same treatment in LA. He is suggesting that instead of being afraid, Blockstar might actually get love from certain gangs out west. Because at the end of the day, the politics in LA and NYC don't always align. But not everyone agrees. Mob James, a former PA Rule who's been deep in LA gang culture, made it clear that Blockstar is making a huge mistake. He also added that Blockstar could use some guidance.
This little dude need help. He need help. And he needs some guidance.
You see, in street politics, keeping your mouth shut is survival rule number one. The more you talk, the bigger target you become. And that's where Blockstar messed up. Instead of laying low and staying quiet, he hopped on No Jumper and started bragging, saying things like ninjas die every day when talking about Pop Smoke. That's the type of talk that makes enemies move in silence. See, if NYC Crips really decide to make a move, it's not gonna be all over social media. They're not gonna announce it. They're not gonna make threats online. It'll happen when Blockstar least expects it. That's how real street retaliation works. And let's not forget, revenge for Pop Smoke has already started in certain ways. Some say one of the Unaliver's family members has already been dealt with. If that's true, then this whole situation is only going to escalate. Blockstar might think he's untouchable, but the reality is he's walking on thin ice. He's got no real protection, no industry support, and no respect in the streets. Anyway, Blockstar might be the loudest, but he's definitely not the only one tied to Pop Smoke's killing. The rest of his crew made moves behind the scenes, taking plea deals to avoid harsher sentences. Some of them got off with just a few years, while others are looking at nearly 3 decades behind bars. But one of them, he was reckless enough to go live from jail, like he forgot he was locked up for murder.
Good news! Target stores are open, so you can get just...
It's crazy how some of these guys still treat life like a game, even after getting caught. Imagine sitting in a cell, facing time for killing a rising rap star. And instead of keeping your head down, you're flexing on Instagram Live. It just shows how little they actually care about what they did, or how little they think about the consequences. They don't see it as real life. It's all about clout, even behind bars. But if you listen closely to the 911 call from that night, you start to realize just how brutal and unnecessary the whole thing was.
Hello? PD, what are your numbers? I'm gonna tell them to wait for LAPD.
Hearing that call again just makes it worse. You can hear the panic, the fear, the reality setting in that someone's life was slipping away over some jewelry and designer clothes. These guys didn't just rob Pop Smoke, they executed him. Let's break it down. Pop Smoke was living the dream. He had just dropped Meet the Woo 2, his career was taking off, and he was finally getting the recognition he had worked so hard for. At just 20 years old, he was already one of the most promising new voices in hip-hop. He had money, fame, and a growing fan base. To celebrate, he rented a luxury house in the Hollywood Hills, a place meant for superstars, where celebrities go to relax and enjoy life away from the Kes. But one small mistake changed everything. Like a lot of artists, Pop Smoke loved sharing his success with his fans. He would post pictures and videos showing off new clothes, jewelry, and gifts. That's normal for a rapper. It's part of the lifestyle. But on February 19, 2020, while flexing on Instagram, he accidentally showed his home address on a gift bag in one of his posts. He didn't realize it at the time, but that tiny slip-up would be all it took to set a deadly chain of events in motion. That Instagram story gave the wrong people the exact location of where he was staying. And once that information was out there, it spread fast. The crew that decided to act on it wasn't some professional hit squad or trained robbers. It was a bunch of young, reckless gang members from Los Angeles, kids really, with guns and something to prove. And they were members of the Hoover Criminals, a set of the Crips, and they weren't thinking about anything beyond a quick come-up. They saw a rapper in a fancy house, showing off designer clothes, expensive watches, and stacks of cash. And in their minds, that meant easy money. They didn't see Pop Smoke as a person, just as an opportunity, a target. So they put together a plan. That night, 4 of them drove to the mansion, armed and ready to do whatever it took. They waited until around 4:30 a.m. when they were sure the house would be quiet. Then, they broke in through the second floor balcony. Pop Smoke was in the shower when they stormed into the house. They caught him off guard. Instead of just taking his things and leaving, they decided to take it even further. They demanded his jewelry, specifically his Rolex and Cuban link chain. But here's the part that makes it even worse. Pop Smoke didn't even fight back. He wasn't trying to resist. He was outnumbered and unarmed, yet they still shot him. The shooter, a 15-year-old kid, fired twice. One of the bullets hit Pop Smoke in the chest. As soon as they shot him, the crew panicked. They grabbed the Rolex but barely got anything for it. They sold it for just $2,000. They killed a rising superstar for pocket change. When the police arrived, Pop Smoke was barely holding on. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. By 5:12 a.m., he was pronounced dead. What makes this whole thing even more tragic is that these killers had no idea what they had just done. In their minds, they had robbed just another rapper. They didn't realize that Pop Smoke wasn't just anybody. He wasn't some local rapper with a couple of songs out. He had real industry connections, people who cared about him. He had the backing of 50 Cent, the respect of big names in the game, and a loyal fan base that wasn't gonna just move on. Now, one by one, they've been caught, charged, and locked up. But the fact that one of them is still acting like this is all a joke just adds insult to injury. It also raises the question, if they don't even respect the situation enough to stay quiet, what does that mean for their safety behind bars? Because in places like that, disrespect comes with consequences. After they got caught, it became clear how young some of these guys were. That played a huge role in how their cases were handled. One of them, the actual shooter, was only 15 years old at the time. Because of that, he was sent to a juvenile facility instead of getting life in prison. Another one, 17 at the time, also got a light sentence. Just over 4 years. The other one settled his case quietly and will be in a juvenile detention center until he turns 25. Meanwhile, Corey Walker, the oldest and allegedly the mastermind of the robbery, took a plea deal that got him 29 years in prison. He was originally facing the death penalty, but the plea deal saved him. So while Blockstar is out bragging about being free, his crew is either locked up or waiting for their turn to walk free again. But here's where things take a dark turn. A recent video surfaced claiming that one of Pop Smoke's Unaliver's brothers was found dead in a barrel. Now, details are still murky, but if this is true, it might mean that revenge for Pop Smoke is already in motion. See, the streets have their own version of justice, and it doesn't move on the same timeline as the courts. When someone high profile like Pop Smoke gets taken out, it's not just about one person, it's about making a statement. The people who loved him, the people who were close to him, and even those who just respected what he represented, they all see what happened. And in some circles, they believe it can't just end with a plea deal and a prison sentence. That's why rumors of retaliation have been swirling ever since Blockstar started talking. His words might have made him feel tough in that moment, but in reality, he just made himself an even bigger target. Because here's the thing, when you kill someone like Pop Smoke, you don't just have to worry about the police, you have to worry about the people he left behind. And when people start turning up dead, especially family members of those involved in his murder, it's hard not to connect the dots. There are still a lot of unanswered questions. Was this a random crime? Was it personal? Or is this just the beginning of a bigger payback? Either way, the message is clear. This situation isn't over. And for Blockstar and the rest of them, freedom might not be the blessing they think it is. Whether it's real retaliation or just a street coincidence, one thing is clear: the people responsible for Pop Smoke's death are playing a dangerous game. And Blockstar, he just made himself the #1 target. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.